Good evening, viewers, and welcome to this edition of Resource PNG. Tonight, we feature a series of interviews, starting with the Minister for Mining, Honorable Byron Chan. We speak to him about the government's take on the pace of developments of the resource sector and the growing concern that world demand is slowing down, which could affect new projects from taking off. We also speak to the Minister about Nautilus's Saltwater One project, which has been stalled, and what message this sends to foreign investors. Also on the show are interviews with the Vice Minister for Mining, Honorable Wira Mori, Dr. Ila Temu, President of the Chambers of Mines and Petroleum, and Paul Blewett, Owner and General Manager of Islands Petroleum. But first up, we have the Minister for Mining, Honorable Byron Chan.
Thank you for making your time available to us, sir. Do you feel that conferences like this one is important for PNG?
Obviously, something of this magnitude gives a big boost to our industry, especially when there's a lot of difficulties that we're facing domestically, but more on an international level when there's a financial crisis happening around the world, Europe, and downturn in the Asian economy, and not so much in the Asian, but a slowdown in the China progress. So something of this magnitude really elevates our country and mining and petroleum.
Do you believe the mining sector of PNG's got an adequate international profile?
Adequate, yes. It's quite adequate. PNG is quite renowned now for its developments. Given some of the assessments by international advisors or consultants, does not really reflect what is happening back at home. Papua New Guinea is quite difficult given the terrain, the languages, our different cultures. To achieve a big project in Papua New Guinea deserves a lot of credit. I don't really agree with some of the consultants' gradings, because PNG is difficult. It's a difficult country. We are a nation amongst nations. So to get something significant, such as LNG, Porgera, Raman Nickel, Lihiro, and any further, is quite very much a terrific success. So this have to be appreciated, and it's not being properly assessed, I must say.
Now, there's been a lot of optimism in recent years about resource development. Do you agree with the view that some policymakers want to slow down the pace of development?
I think our people air their sentiments about having more participation in all the projects, and that has, as a responsible government, we must take into consideration our people's requests and needs. And I am in that position where I agree, and I'm in the position to be able to guide the mining developments that are, happening in our country. However, to put any legislation against that right now may not be the right time. Like I said,
Why is that?
Why? Because the world is going through this phase where a lot of resources are in demand. Resources are in demand, and people are very. The majors are looking at countries with political stability and stable policies to invest, and we have to appreciate what they are looking for. Our country has to, look at what are the major projects that we will have online when LNG drops down, to accommodate for the influx of highly skilled Papua New Guineans, or else we'll have a massive brain drain, and Papua New Guinean that may go overseas, and where we need them back at home. So taking all that into effect, we will have to monitor it and maintain the status quo, I say.
Yes. Now, just touching on world demand, there is current opinion that the world demand is slowing. Some projects that were considered very attractive could have difficulties in getting the green light for development. Are you optimistic about new projects, and can you mention some of them?
The world demand, I suppose a lot of the countries right now, especially China, China is kind of like is a major player here, and they absorbed a lot of minerals that we have. They have a lot of investments, especially in the African countries. I just returned from the trip to China, and they at the convention they said, we may be number 1 in silver, number 2 in gold, but give us 5 years, we'll be number 1 in gold. In terms of consumption, and China is the biggest consumer of all the world's minerals, because of they've got major projects. Even if they slow down the pace from 9% to 7%, it's still a big consumption, and they still need those minerals. There is not really a slowdown in mineral. Did you say slowdown in mineral
Demand. World demand. So you're not in agreement with that? There is not a
slowdown. The slowdown in the world economy, because of the various countries experiencing the financial crisis in Spain, Italy, and Ireland, and everywhere else. I'm not sure Ireland, but everywhere else. But they're especially, that's a financial crisis. The demand for minerals is still there. There is a very aggressive approach by mining and petroleum companies all across the world. Papua New Guinea is just one of the many countries that are actively trying to get attention to develop our mineral potential.
So you're optimistic about new projects?
New projects on the way. We have WAFI. We'd like to get WAFI up. That's a huge project, over $5 billion US to get up to production stage. That will really transform the whole region, especially Lae, Morabel. The infrastructures, the government is preparing for that through the 2013 budget. So we're gearing up for a major project to come online. And WAFI, there is Yandara, Marengo. There's also Frida. We'd like to get Frida up and going. There's potential there. I think our people are ready to go ahead with major projects. Government will engage with the people, engage with the provincial government, local level governments, to make sure that everyone is captured in the whole development process of developing these major mines.
Stay tuned as we have more on the interview with Honorable Byron Chan after this break. Good to have you back. The government, more than a year ago, granted Nautilus Minerals a mining development license, giving it the right to commence development. The government subsequently took the project to arbitration, and the Saltwater 1 project has now been temporarily cancelled. We asked the Minister of Mining, Honorable Byron Chan, if this has sent a bad message to foreign investors. Let's find out his views on this.
You mentioned some of the go-ahead projects there. What about Saltwater 1?
Saltwater 1 has come to a bit of a slowdown. There is current arbitration. but that is the state. There's a state team comprised of the Department of Finance, IPA, Environment, and Mining. We're all together on this. We're working progressively to achieve what we want is proper development of the saltwater project. This government has, and myself, we absorbed the problems associated with saltwater one, in the sense that these issues that are being discussed now has been discussed over the years. We've acquired, as a new government, we've acquired the problems of the past that we are trying to resolve now, and we're still resolving right up to today. We're meeting, and we'd like to see these resolved. We like to, like I said, we cannot rush things, especially of this this type of project. You know, no one has ventured into the sea to do mining, and we've got to be cautious, and we've got to be responsible. And this government and myself and the ministry, we are responsible. It's actually in my electorate as well. So I'm very cautious about the approach we take towards developing the saltwater project. And everything is online. Just some issues that Petroleum and state obligations, plus Nautilus have to discuss in terms of property rights. And once that all is resolved, once we put in our component, once the people and government all agree, then the project will go on online.
Okay. Is it fair to say, though, that for a project that's almost halfway through its development stage, basically, is this not giving a negative message to investors?
Actually, I see it the other way. I'd say it's very positive, in the sense that we are cautious about our approach. What has happened may be through the media, I would say. Most of what has happened has been put out of proportion, and it hasn't been the government has been saying things. I haven't said anything. Everyone else has been saying everything and blowing everything out of context, and that has given a bad image towards this whole project. I suppose if people let the government do the job, let the departments do the job, let Nautilus interact with the government, we will get over this hurdle. Right now the hurdle is brought on, by the media. The media has totally put things out of proportion, and we have this stalemate because of negative media approach towards the project.
So as far as you're concerned, this is just a temporary halt, and that it will, once all stakeholders get together and have discussions, that it will proceed?
See, the issue that I have is that the mining license has been already issued. I've come into office, Prime Minister and this government has come into office after the mining license has been issued. The whole process has already been done before the O'Neill Dion government came into office. We as a responsible government and a new government will have to guide it through again, because all this is quite new to us. We didn't go through the whole process, and we were fully not really aware of what was happening. Right. So we've just come into the scenario quite new, and we progressing it slowly, cautiously, and make sure that everything is in order. There is deadlines undertaken by the government and by all stakeholders as part of the license agreement. Right. We have an obligation, and the project stakeholders all have obligations. If they are not fulfilled, then there is a stalemate, and we may have to, look at what alternatives will be derive from this stalemate. But right up till now, everything has been discussed. We're discussing issues here in Sydney as well.
Yes.
So it's ongoing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're happy with the environmental impact statement? All of that has been assessed and looked at by your department?
I think the whole, like I said, the whole process of environment, impact study, etc., has been already evaluated, and it's done by the Minister for Environment and the Department for Environment. So environmental issues are not really, I'm not responsible.
Sure.
I'm just responsible that they do the right thing when they're actually mining. And the whole process is that you have to acquire that environment before you go into environment license before you go into mining. Once they achieve that process, which they have already, it is my department now who will be responsible for monitoring everything in the mining stage.
Right. Now, it was announced in the budget that the government's going to review the taxation regime for the resources sector with the help of the IMF. Do you believe that the mining industry should be paying higher taxes?
Gosh, I don't want to. Well, what I can say is that my department is currently undertaking some policy reviews. That would also include possible changes in the tax and regimes, etc. Also, the special support grants, the infrastructure development grants, and everything else that is captured under the Mining Act of 1995 and the Mining Safety Act. So that's what we are currently undertaking. As well as participation by landowners and the state's equity as well. So all that is being currently addressed by my department, and which hopefully will get a more clear picture by the end of next year, because there's a whole process of dialogue. We have to consult the chamber, the people, and the members of parliament, and NEC before the proposed legislation will be put on the floor. So we're going through all that, and tax is one of the things that we're also assessing.
Thank you for your time, Minister.
Thank you so much.
That was the Minister of Mining, Honorable Byron Chan. Up ahead in the program, we speak to the Vice Minister of Mining, Honorable Weera Mori. The mining sector is experiencing an unprecedented period of growth and activity. There are many new projects in the pipeline. We speak to the Vice Minister for Mining, who has a background in geology, what he feels are the most exciting projects from a geologist's perspective.
Welcome, viewers. We are joined by the Vice Minister of Mines and also the member for Chuava, Mr. Weera Mori. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mori.
Thank you, Ines, and it's my pleasure, viewers.
All right. So, I understand you're a geologist by profession, and you've been doing it for a number of years. Just looking at it from a geological perspective, what do you think are the most exciting projects that are online now?
I think I'd like to tell you honestly that it is the most exciting time in Papua New Guinea because we have got a lot of mega projects, and I mean big projects by global standards. Apart from the 52 million ounces resource that you have in Lihir, what we have in Wafi, Golpu in the Morobe province will basically complement, and it will underpin the PNG economy for a long while.
So what's happening now is that the industry, it's the idea of having stability in terms of our systems. The Prime Minister has given his assurance that they're going to maintain political stability. How do you think that's going to influence the extractive industry? Because you need that kind of thing.
Yes, definitely, and I think I must commend Prime Minister Peter O'Neill when in his opening remarks, he basically assured potential investors, not only from Papua New Guinea, but externally, including Australia, that we do have that political stability in Papua New Guinea. We have a very good business climate, and that for the first time in the history of PNG, we have a government now that is more focused in delivering services to the rural areas. And that had been the tone of the budget, and that the budget was successfully passed. Backing on that, what investors look for is if they come in to invest in PNG, there are issues that they must be able to contend with, and that is that the security of tenure, whether will they get the money back or not. And I think that has been, well stated by the Prime Minister. And that the fact that we have mega projects like the LNG gas in PNG is a vote of confidence in Papua New Guinea. And PNG projects will have no problem, including Wafi Golpu to basically, and other projects that are coming on stream, like Yandera. They will have no problems, and including down the line, if you look at Frida River, they will have no problems in gaining access to funds, both locally and offshore.
So it's a growing industry. It's probably the
is.
most exciting time ever
Is.
because
It is.
we've got so many mines, potential
Yes.
mines that are coming up as well.
Yes.
I guess the next question is regulatory framework. How do we actually maintain or make it become better? Because there's a lot of red tape.
Well, one thing is that you must know, Eunice, and also for the benefit of viewers throughout Papua New Guinea, mining industry plays a very significant role in terms of the economy of Papua New Guinea. What we need to do is that we have got to maintain that. It will be complemented when LNG gas come into production and by 2015. But then what will happen is that when you see the when construction phase of the LNG gas terminates, or when it ceases into production, you will see the other mining projects will be able to pick up from there to maintain that. But what needs to happen is that we need to actually strengthen the regulatory framework. We have come a long way. The industry have come a long way. What must happen now is that we have to look at what we have been doing things in the past, how we have been doing them, what had been our success, what had been our failures, so that when we have to bring in new policies, fiscal policies, to amend that to suit the growing, the present trend, it must be done in such a way that it has got to be able to accommodate so many other issues together, so that it does not upset the apple cart. You don't want to arrive at a situation where you would have a fiscal regime that will be too rigid for the state to operate within or for the investor to operate within. We must have a win-win situation. And that's what the reviews, there's an ongoing reviews. We would like to see a wider participation of all stakeholders. That includes the government, it includes the industry through the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, MRA, Department of Mineral Policy and Geohazards, before the Mining Act are amended. But at the same time too, and as I've said in my earlier statement, Eunice, is that we must also have a vibrant Mine Safety Act, so that it will complement both the Mining Act as well to actually drive the industry to continue on to maintain what it has been doing so far.
So let's talk about the license of tenements now. Yes. It's been said that it seems like some companies buy tenements just so that they can sell them at a higher price. What would you say to that? This is not correct. What happens is this, that when exploration mining comes in, they basically peg in for an exploration license, say, at this point in time it's 2 years. All the due diligence to the processing of those applications is done by MRA as the regulatory arm. Before it used to be the Department of Mining. Now, what happens is that before those leases are granted, it goes to the Mining Advisory Council. And they recommend to the minister for approval based on the due diligence. And this is strictly done by MRA with, who have the technical capacity
and the professionals to basically make sure that all the due diligences are done. Now, under the Mining Act, no company is allowed to do any dealing whatsoever during the first term, which is 2 years term. So that perception is wrong and it's not correct. But if it does happen, then it is illegal. Now, what only happens is after the first 2 years, a company, based on whatever the results of the outcome of its exploration work programs, then they can be able to attract other parties to venture in based on what they have basically discovered or uncovered during the normal exploration programs. So no company is allowed to do any or enter into any contractual arrangements in the first 2 years. And that perception is not correct, and it is not the case with the tenement administrations in PNG.
All right. Mr. Weramori, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, and viewers.
And that was the Vice Minister for Mining and member for Chuava, Mr. Weramori.
Do stay tuned. There's more after this break. Foundation for Growth and Prosperity. With success comes responsibility. This was the theme of the recent Mining and Petroleum Investment Conference, an initiative by the Chamber of Mines and Petroleum. We speak to the President of the Chamber, Dr. Ila Temu, on the contributions made by the resource sector and what outcomes he would like to see as a result of this conference.
Dr. Temu, thank you for being with us today. You're here for the conference, the Mining and Petroleum Conference. Can you tell us about the concept behind it and what you hope to achieve?
Well, this is the 12th time that we are having the investment conference in Sydney. This year, there is a record attendance. I think the figure is about 1,350.
Goodness.
Which is, pretty large by any standard. And I understand Hilton, when it does conferences, it doesn't achieve that number. So it's a big number, big conference by any standard. The theme for this year is a foundation for growth and prosperity, and we have a sub-theme with that which says, with success comes responsibility. And I guess it reflects the fact that, over the last 20 years, the resources sector has made a significant contribution to the country, both in terms of the revenues, exports, jobs, community benefits especially. So significant contribution. And I guess the view is, with a number of new opportunities that are now coming up, especially LNG, and then we have a number of other, Wafi, Golpu by Newcrest in Morobe. There's Frida in West Sepik province, and then there is expansion of Lihi, for example. So a lot of this is, in our view, setting the foundation for prosperity and growth.
Right.
But within that context, I guess the message that we'd like to bring out of the conference is, yes, the foundation is set. We have a lot of these opportunities that are coming through, but these opportunities cannot be realized if people that are involved in the process, the companies, the government, the departmental heads, the landowners, if we don't take our share of the responsibility to make sure that these projects come good, then we won't tap the benefits that could come out of this opportunity. So I think that's the key message. And in this morning's keynote address by the Prime Minister, he gave assurance that the resources sector is a significant player, and the government's responsibility is to make sure that there is a playing field that is fair both to the companies as well as the country in terms of the distribution of benefits. So I think it's a pretty good message, and given the interest that we have, especially in terms of the attendance, the primary objective is to try and sell the country, tell the story about what is going on in PNG. It's a good story to tell. There is prospectivity, the laws and regulations are stable, there is relative political stability, the regulations have been applied fairly. So in terms of the environment, it's a pretty good environment, and I guess we are saying this is the environment within which resource extraction occurs in this country, and it works. And we have attracted the big players in. Barrick, ExxonMobil, Oil Search has been there a long time. Newcrest has also just come in. So significant players within the region are in country and are trying to develop these resources in country. So there must be responsibility so that the country can generate, or these projects can come to fruition and the benefits are generated.
So reassurance to the current stakeholders and also the current key players in the industry, and also good messages to potential investors, I guess.
Yes, no, I was quite happy with the message that came out of from the PM's address. He basically said, what is needed by private sector to invest in this country, what are the conditions, and one of the key ones is political stability. So he made reference to the fact that there is now a new legislation that is going to be passed that would allow the extension of the grace period from 18 to 30 months.
Yes.
That creates additional stability as well. Also, he mentioned about the review of the petroleum and mining tax legislation, and gave assurance that this is not targeted at trying to just make a grab at who takes what. It's more trying to do a review so that all parties, that all stakeholders that are involved in the industry have a fair share of return in terms of the effort and investment that they make. So those are reassuring things. I mean, he also touched on corruption and governance, good governance. That's a key issue, especially in the resources sector, where a significant amount of benefit is being generated by the resource projects. But is it showing on the ground? Maybe the answer is no, because the ability to manage those resources and make sure that they generate the benefit, that's probably lacking. There are landowners who are not, very transparent in the management of the benefits. They get royalties, for example, but it doesn't go to the rest of the clans or families. There are grants that are paid, whether they use those for the purpose for which those grants are being paid. So a fair bit of improvement, I think, is needed to make sure that the benefit that's been generated by this resource development actually makes a difference to the lives of ordinary Papua New Guineans.
Yes.
I think that's the key challenge for the industry and for the sector. And looks like the government effort to address corruption, for example, on the ground, would be a key issue in trying to improve that process.
We will have more on this interview with Dr. Ila Temu after the break. If you have just tuned in, we are speaking to Dr. Ila Temu, the president of the PNG Chamber of Mines and Petroleum, on the recently held Mining and Petroleum Investment Conference. Also in this segment, we ask him about what the Chamber's view is on whom the ownership of resources should lie with.
Is there any representation of landowners at this conference?
Yes, there is a fair bit of representation. I think the figure that I gave this morning was about 55% of the delegates are Papua New Guineans, and probably a good number, maybe half, would be landowners. We have public servants that have come down, a number of department heads as well. A lot of the landowner companies, they have scheduled their board meetings during this conference in Sydney as well. So a lot of them have come down with their full boards to do their board meetings as well as attend the conference, and it provides a good exposure for a lot of the landowners, because it's good that they can see the interest that has been displayed by potential investors, and the promotion by the chamber to try and sell the country as a investment destination, especially for the resources sector.
And perhaps indicate to them what the chamber is doing to support them and what their concerns might be.
Well, I mean, that's this morning's session, for example. I think the message is clear that landowners are an important stakeholder in the whole process, and it's quite unique. There are not many countries in the world where resource development projects you actually have very active participation by landowners themselves, and that's quite a unique thing, and you don't see it anywhere else in the world. And it's a good thing for PNG, because in our environment, in our culture, landowners are the ones who sit on the ground. They live there, that's their livelihood. So if you are developing a project in their backyard, you need to involve them in the decision-making process, and they need to see that they are party to the development of that resource. So it is a key part of the whole development of resources in our country. And I think the fact that it's recognized in regulation, it's recognized as government policy in terms of taking up equity or providing landowner contracts, for example. Those are the structures within which landowners come in. So it's a fairly formal process, and it allows for participation by landowners. But I mean, if you had the presentations this morning, there is also a significant level of benefit that's going out in addition to all the taxes, all the contracts that have been put in place. There is additional benefit that's going out to communities, health, education, infrastructure, for example. So significant benefit especially for the communities.
Certainly. What's the Chamber's perspective on resource ownership?
Well, the current arrangement, in our view, has provided the framework for development of resources in the country. Under the current arrangement and under our constitution and our laws, the resources in the ground are owned by the state. The provision for that is provided in the constitution. In my view, our forefathers did the right thing by making sure that is provided for, because the resources are not known until someone comes in and finds it. So nobody really knows where the resources are until somebody spends the money. The fact that it's provided for in law and in the constitution, it means that the resources can be used, and the benefits of that resource development must be provided to all Papua New Guineans. It's not just the landowners themselves. So I think that's under our constitution and under our culture, that probably sits very well, because if resources were privately owned, the benefits of those resources are also privately owned. So there is no ability of the government, except through taxes, for example, to claim equity or shareholding in these projects. So in my view, in the Chamber's view, ownership of resources by the state has worked well for PNG. If we try to shift ownership to landowners, I think we will have problems in terms of the ability of government to make sure that the benefits of resource development are spread much more widely. The provision, I think, in the Constitution, as provided for by our forefathers, I think that's a visionary provision that allows for the development of the resource and ownership of the resource by the state, and then the distribution of the benefit of that resource to all Papua New Guineans. We all have the right to the ownership of that resource. When we say we all, I think it also means not only current generations, but future generations, as well. So in terms of the development of resources, my own personal conviction is if we develop the resources now, we must use the benefit flow of these resources now to create additional asset that can then generate future benefit for future Papua New Guineans, because they also have rights to the ownership of resources now.
That's right.
If you change ownership to landowners, I think the opportunity to do that is very limited, because once the current landowners get hold of the benefit, there is no way they will invest for the future of future landowners. So I think that's a very important distinction that needs to be made in this whole debate, that according to our Constitution, resources are owned by everybody. Who is the state? The state is you and me, the Prime Minister, all the landowners. We are all the owners of the resource. So in terms of developing the resource, we have a direct benefit to the benefit flow of that resource. So both in terms of the chamber perspective and in my own personal view and experience, globally, I think the provision that we have in terms of state ownership of resources is a good one, and there is no need to change that now. And I think the Prime Minister's statement this morning has given some assurance that these things are not likely to be changed in the short to medium term.
Thank you for your time today, Dr. Temu.
Pleasure.
Dr. Ila Temu, the President of the PNG Chamber of Mines and Petroleum.
Thank you for staying with us. There's more to come. In our final segments in tonight's episode, we speak to the owner and general manager of Islands Petroleum, Paul Blewett, about his company and its association with Mobil.
Welcome, Paul. Welcome to our show. So please tell us something about your company. So what does Island Petroleum do?
Okay, well, we're a fuel supplier, but we specialize in lubricants.
Okay, and would you like to elaborate that, please?
So we have the rights in Papua New Guinea to distribute Mobil lubricants, and we also have a fleet of vehicles and fuel depots across the country and distributors. So we're a reasonably large company.
How did your company originate?
Well, when I was a young man, I bought a carrier, a small carrier in Rabaul, and one of their customers was Mobil Oil.
Okay.
So we got various contracts from Mobil, took over a fuel depot in Bougainville, for example, and because of our early success with the mining industry in Bougainville, they gave us other fuel depots, or sold us other fuel depots across the country.
Okay. And how long have you been in PNG now?
I came as a child. My father worked in the coffee industry in 1965, and I took out citizenship in 1975 when independence came. And I've been in business in Rabaul for 33 years.
Okay. So Paul, what is your relationship with Mobil?
Okay, well, they've given us the rights to distribute their lubricants across Papua New Guinea. We're the authorised distributor. And they've also sold us various fuel depots, and we operate lube warehouses in various strategic locations across Papua New Guinea. And so we're their main distributor in Papua New Guinea.
How does Island Petroleum support PNG's resource sector?
Well, we have a few mines as our major customers. For example, Lihir Gold, Newcrest, and Allied Gold, Simberi, and some of the prospecting companies like Woodlark Mine that's about to get started. And we have warehouses across the country so that our specialised lubricant engineers can assist with technical issues with some of these mines.
Okay. And would you like to discuss anything else about any of your other new projects?
We're building a tank farm in Rabaul and going to distribute our fuel with our own vessel in the near future. So we're expanding and investing in the Rabaul depot to make it a hub for the country.
Are there any challenges that you're facing while distributing the fuels or?
Well, operating in Papua New Guinea is a lot of challenges. We operate in Bougainville, which is a lot of the infrastructure is destroyed, but we're probably the largest supplier there, and I think because of the difficulties, a small company like ourselves can actually respond to those issues, and we end up succeeding where it's difficult.
Can you explain that? So how, being a small company, you are able to cope with those challenges?
During the Civil War, I travelled with the army, and also some of our other customers were previously BRA, and we were really just treating everybody as customers, and we were going places where probably most of the bigger fuel companies wouldn't dare to go. You know, I was travelling in flak jackets and helmets and helicopters and military vehicles, and travelling with, you know, some of the other characters in that Civil War, and we were seen as a friend to all, and we got a big share of the market there. And so that's one of our specialties, I suppose, is to go where nobody else wants to go.
So you see that personal relationship with them.
Right. Yeah. And I used to travel right to the end of Bougainville, even, you know, just after the war. It was threatened on occasions, but I still went back.
Thank you, Paul, for being on our show. So this was Paul Blewett from Islands Petroleum, the owner and general manager.
That's all we have for tonight on Resource PNG. If you want to know more about the program, do email us on this address, resourcepng@mtv.com.pg, or check MTV online, that's www.mtv.com.pg, and go to our Resource PNG page. Until the same time next week, have a pleasant evening.